Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 5 of the Titanforge podcast. My name is Dratnos. Joining me, as always, is my friend Tettles.
Yo, what's up, Dratnos? Hello, chat. Hello, Trail.
And joining us also, as always, is Trell.
Hey guys, hey chat, how's it going?
Welcome, welcome. So this week we are going to discuss. We've got a kind of a main topic this week that's a little bit more timeless. We don't want to go with something that's okay. There's a new patch obviously coming up in a couple days, so we wanted to pick a topic where if you download this show and drive to work on Wednesday or whatever and are listening to this, it's not immediately out of date. So we picked a topic that could just go even through a patch, just always be accurate, be current. So we want to talk about like finding a group, how to pug stuff, how to move from pugging to having a consistent group you play with. Kind of both Mythic Plus and Raid we'll talk about. Those two arenas. And then we're also going to discuss, there's a bunch of new, patch knowledge that we are going to talk about, current events. We'll talk about changes to the Beguiling Affix. We'll talk about changes to every dungeon, the mob count. And that's, those will be what we talk about here today. But first I want to quickly do a shout out. Anybody who's reviewed us on any platform, so like iTunes, Spotify, if you've rated us there, if you told your friends about us, if you've posted about us on Reddit, which somebody named Augur the Wise or Agur the Wise on Reddit has done, thank you so much for helping tell people about our show. We really appreciate it. Big thanks.
Also, big shout outs to anybody who's watching it live in chat.
Yep, big shout outs to chat. Chat always they feel like I neglect them when we're live. Everybody always they come back to me afterwards and they're like, why don't you talk to us in chat like you always do? Is this less important than Raid, Mythic Raid, or whatever where you're streaming and you completely ignore mechanics to read chat?
Wait a second.
That's a true story, by the way. That's a very true story.
DPS life.
Yep. I especially when I was playing Rogue. Not so much when I was playing Shaman, but reading chat and Raid was pretty much what kept me sane during Jaina progression. So yeah, but your chat is not forgotten at all. And we love you a lot, and we're collecting your great questions to answer at the end of the show. So, let's, before we get into our main topic, let's just talk about how our last weeks have been in World of Warcraft since we last did a show. Get to know all our hosts here. Trell, what have you been up to this last week here in World of Warcraft?
I wasn't playing too much. I had some IRL stuff going on, but the last few days we've been doing lots of teaming dungeons and trying to catch up on the meta. And it's been fun, honestly. Me and Dratnos actually played last night.
Yeah.
For 6 hours? It was a long one.
There's some good keys, yeah. We did some dungeons that weren't Siege. That was a lot of fun, and then we did some Siege. And that was a mistake. That we should have called it right then and there before we set foot in that dungeon.
Teaming Siege is more like you look at it on teaming and you decide which 2 mobs you don't want to pull, and then you just pull the rest. And that's spent about an hour in there.
Yeah, we pulled up the MDT or whatever, and you're just like, okay, we'll just pull every single mob from the start of the dungeon to the end of the dungeon, and we'll skip like this one pack. And we ended up skipping like one pack, and then we were short on mob count, and we had to go back and get more because we'd skipped one pack. It was actually brutal. What a dungeon.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Okay, how about you, Tuttles? What have you been up to?
So I had a minor mental breakdown a couple days ago because they made some really bad changes.
One of the beautiful things One of the beautiful things about your minor mental meltdowns is that you record them and put them up on YouTube.
Gotta sell out.
There's just this video of you just like tearing your hair out about the changes to dungeons. Yeah.
There was a clip of me screaming, but I didn't add that. I chose to not put that one. So Wednesday or Thursday, that was pretty unfortunate. And then yesterday they came back and had some pretty good changes, so I made a pretty happy video on that. I've been doing some PTR stuff. Honestly, I'm just patiently waiting for Moonkin to come back around into the meta. YT Tettles, the rogue, got leveled in case Moonkin in fact never comes back into the meta, because it seems like rogue might be the move for just all of eternity. So
Did you get it through your freehold boosts? Was that how you did it?
I did.
Yeah,
I did.
So
before they removed the freehold boosts.
Anybody listening now, freehold boosts are going away. You will no longer be able to level a character through freehold boosts because anytime you're in a group with somebody who's got their experience turned off starting in patch 8.2, which is what you did to do a freehold boost, everybody in that group is going to get 95% reduced experience. So freehold boosts are dead starting in 8.2. So
Yeah.
if you're listening now still before 8.2, now is the time. If you have some alts that you're planning to level with freehold boosting, this is it. The last train is leaving the station. You need to hop aboard.
I paid like I think I paid like 20,000 gold a level. I stopped at level 119, so then I could go and do my little quest to unlock all of the cool Taras zones. So that got me to 120. So I saved 20k gold there. So yeah, 180k. Got my rogue leveled.
That's Say you saved the whole 20,000 gold as well. That's
yeah,
insane.
very cool. It's a big move.
Okay, cool. So that's been this week in World of Warcraft. Let's talk a little bit about our main topic, which is how to find a group, how to pug even. So let's define the term pug, because you may be hearing this. I believe there will be some people listening to this show that hear the term pug and don't actually know. They might have an idea of what it means, but they don't really know what it means. So the term pug comes from pickup group. It's an acronym for that, and it means just like getting together with a bunch of people you don't know, finding them through some way in game, not people you'd already played with. And these days, a pug group is it might use a Discord, you might use voice communications, but you also might not. You might just be doing a key without voice chat. So I guess Tettles, how did you get started with was pugging part of your WoW experience when you were first playing?
Yeah, so I started in WAD. Obviously, LFG was around. I don't know how long LFG's been around for. I assume for a pretty long time. So I started in WAD. I would pug like normal raids and stuff like that, and I found them pretty fun. And then eventually, I decided that I wanted to stop pugging because pugging kind of sucks. So I started looking for a more consistent group. But the process of me getting to more consistent group did involve me like having to grind through all these pugs and get logs, and that's kind of what we want to talk about today. Is like just kind of like the process of like where you go from pugging to getting into more consistent groups, what you should be kind of looking for, how you should be kind of looking to play, or how you should end up being like feeling. Did any of you guys, whenever you guys started playing, have to like pug through LFG and whatnot to try to find more consistent groups, or is that?
Yeah, I used to pug in Legion, because I kind of started playing seriously in Legion. When I first got into it, I pugged heroic raids a lot on several characters, and then I would also pug like medium range Mythic Plus keys on several tanks. And I was just like learning all the basics and trying to get to know all the aspects of the. And I had a good time doing it. There were definitely some negative experiences, like the rage quits, the classic one person screws up and everyone quits. I think everyone's seen that at one point or another.
Certainly among players that sometimes pug and sometimes don't pug, there's they generally much prefer to not pug. It's usually a little bit safe, like there's less likely to be somebody quitting immediately off the bat. It's easier to play with people right?
I won't lie. I pugged a King's Rest on my Prot Warrior the other day. I accidentally wiped us on the first pull in King's Rest, and then I instantly left the group.
Tettles here is admitting that he is the problem. He is the.
Dude, we couldn't get back into the Golden Serpent room, and I'm just like, fuck, dude, I really don't want to do this King's Rest 16 pug anyways. I was like, I'm just gonna leave. It'll be okay.
Tettles, please.
Yeah, Tettles, no, man.
It was a shame quit. I fucked up and wiped us. I was like, I'm not fucking staying, no. And I just left.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, okay, so that's maybe one way to look at it is like, in pugs that you're not really, there's nothing too serious going on. So like, if somebody were to leave, it's no big deal. It's just, you could go on to the next one. It's not, you're not making any kind of commitment or whatever. You can just get on out of there. But yeah, so that's part of that's one mentality that does exist in pugs, is particularly early in the dungeon. If a mistake gets made, it's likely to be the end of the dungeon. You need to be careful all throughout the dungeon. Like, there are things you can type into party chat that might cause somebody to leave irrationally, even like if you're most of the way through the dungeon. I've seen this before. I've seen like you're on like the last 20% of the dungeon or whatever. Somebody dies to a mechanic that like maybe it's their fault, but like honestly it's a hard mechanic or whatever, and somebody else like says something to call them an idiot in party chat, and that person just like pulls the dungeon, hearts out, and you're just there left, no counterplay.
Or somebody like pulls the boss and like forces your group to wipe in malicious ways to try to wipe the group or end the group run or whatever. And then
yeah, it's very very true. Very 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 much something you do have to watch out for. So making sure that your group doesn't like have that happen is a good thing to try and do. Trying to stop people before they get toxic by being friendly and whatever is a good play.
Even then, there's still a lot of ways that you can like individually improve, even while pugging or even while people are like.
Right.
It's pretty troll for me to like. I understand that it's like really troll for me to just like instantly leave the instance as soon as I accidentally wipe a Sun King's Rest. Like I'm well aware, but like if I'm looking to like personally improve, and it wasn't really fair to the other people in all fairness, but if you're looking for like to personally improve, like be looking at what mistakes you're making, how you can be looking to just get better, and focusing on yourself, not really others' mistakes, is the way of doing that. Because of course the other people in that group can say, well, what an asshole, but they could also say, all right, well, I probably shouldn't have used my cooldown there or whatever. Maybe I should have kicked that Shadow Bolt volley cast that wiped us or whatever else, right?
Maybe I should have invited a different protection warrior.
Oh.
I blame Goosey.
Yeah, it's. I think you've stumbled onto a good mindset that's not just a pug specific mindset, which is just any time in WoW, if you have the mindset of like, what can I do to improve myself, that is gonna serve you better than any other goal based approach. Like if your goal is to beat a dungeon, like if that's what you wake up and you're like, today I want to time this dungeon, that's something you can fail at, and that's something where you can have a bad outcome. But if you wake up and you're like, okay, today I want to get better at this game, even if you don't time any keys, even if you just deplete stuff, if you learn something, you've accomplished that goal, right? So you can have a successful day regardless of what the actual results are, just if you're focused on the process. So I think that's a really good call. And I think that's one thing about pugs as well, is that like the better you play, like okay, so people always ask like, okay, how do I go from pugs to finding a stable group, right? How do I go from pugs to finding a good group? And the answer I always give is like, okay, at the end of the pug, right, you should add all the people in the pug that were good, and try and then whisper them again next time you want to play, and eventually you'll start, if you keep on adding the best people in every group, and they keep on accepting you and agreeing to play with you, you'll keep moving on up in the world, right? Because you're just going to keep doing better and better dungeons. But in order for that process to work, people need to want to add you back, which means you need to play well in the dungeon. So there's always an opportunity for you, the better you play, to have like that's a variable in the process of finding groups, right? The better you play, the more people are going to want to add you, and the more people are going to want to play with you again, and the higher keys you'll get invited to, and the less you'll have to pug. So
yeah, and not being an asshole also helps too, because like in the high end Mythic Plus scene and in Raid, player perception is like really really important. It's like to the point where if you apply for a guild and you have a reputation for being an asshole, you probably won't get accepted into that guild. Same with Mythic Plus. I know that there are people that we've pretty much just internally we have in our minds, and somebody's like, hey, do you want to play with that person? You just instantly go, no, I don't want to play with that person. That guy is toxic or bad or whatever else, right? So making sure that you always at least have a positive attitude going into every single dungeon is also very important. Or Raid too.
We've learned that Tettles has an M+ players blacklist here. Yeah. Tettles, would you like to just list all the players that you would never play with here on the podcast?
So here, let me air it out. We got Shift Mage. I will play with Shift Rogue, but not Shift Mage.
Okay, that's
Shift
fair.
Mage is on my Mythic Plus players blacklist. Okay, hear me out. Goosey Druid, never playing Double Moonkin. Waffle Sauce, same reason as Goosey Druid, not ever playing Double Moonkin again. Jamal Sargeras, he's banned, but Jamal of Illidan, he can come.
All right.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, good. We dodged the blacklist. Pog. That's a good outcome. Yeah.
Oh, what was it? Drat? Yes, that guy's banned too.
What? No, Drat. Yes is a pumper. That's. Dude, I hit the end of okay. Drat Yes is a Windwalker, and I've been practicing doing the Whirling Dragon Punch bug, and I get it like a solid 20% of the time, and I only die to mechanics trying to execute it like half the time. Okay, so it's pretty good. It's pretty good. That character is insane.
Oh, Collab is also on my blacklist.
Good. Yeah. Same. Okay. So, but I think you've stumbled onto a good thing, which is like, yeah, it actually does matter, particularly like if you're trying to move into high end Mythic Plus, like if you're trying to be in the like 3,000 plus score range, there's a pretty small group of people that you're going to play with to be up there. Like we're talking in the order of hundreds, maybe thousands, but not like enough that there's a reputation you can have if you rage quit keys, if you yell at people, that will close some groups to you. So you do need to be careful. And definitely when it comes to guilds as well. It's like you can be a little bit more toxic and still find success in Mythic Plus, but like in a 20-person environment, if you have a reputation for being potentially like damaging to a raid group's like sticking together, like if you're somebody who people see as a guild killer or whatever, you're not gonna like, no matter how insane your logs are, as an officer, we like when we're looking at those kind of apps, if we hear that kind of stuff, we just can't take that risk, right? Of somebody who will drive strife in the raid, because if that causes even one or two people to quit, it wasn't worth recruiting them.
I mean, yeah, dude, and like everything is streamed nowadays too, so just tension's getting hot. Like, I understand it can be stressful, but it ends up being like about how you end up wording it too, because you could kill your guild like Trell did, where Trell is like,
Yeah.
hey guys, I think I just want to go raid.
guild.
I want to go raid in a little bit more of competitive environment in Encore. Thanks for the memories, guys. And then he just kind of dips out. That's fine. But Trell, if he showed up and was like, you guys all suck. I don't really know why I raided here for so long. Man, this really sucks. Weekend raiding sucks. You guys all suck. I'm going to join Encore because I'm bad. I'm a bad boy of NA raiding scene. Trell ski over here.
Oh, God.
And then you're gonna get struggle to get invited back.
I just got blinded by my screen. Sorry.
Oh my goodness, that was dude, that is weird. It's like I heard Trell talking twice there, 2 different times. There, incredible. Yeah, definitely with everything being streamed. I don't know. It's interesting though, because sometimes like as somebody who streams, I stream raid and like people will often say that we have a toxic environment in my raid, which we don't. Like our guild master like yells at people a little bit when they screw up stuff, but like he doesn't yell at them like in terms of their like value as a person. He just yells at them for being stupid and messing up a mechanic. But I don't know. There's a couple different flavors of toxicity, right? There's the kind of like real bad stuff that actually causes problems.
Yeah,
that you
sure.
do need to watch out for. But then also like, I don't know, if you're in a raid group that's doing like high end stuff, you also need to be expect to be held accountable, and not be surprised if, particularly like if the raid leader ends up doing that. That's kind of their job. You need somebody in the raid who does that.
Yeah. So circling back around,
Yeah.
so like how to individually improve from pugging. It also helps a lot if you're logging all of your stuff, not only for Mythic Plus, more specifically for raid. Generally speaking, if you have really good logs, you will get invited to more raid groups or consistent like a complete guild potentially, right? Because people do also look at logs whenever they're forming up their pugs. They'll just kind of throw your name into Warcraft logs, see what you're parsing wise, that kind of thing. Of course, achievements and past accolades also does help as well, but it's definitely something to be thinking of whenever you're doing that. So setting up Warcraft logs, logging all of your own stuff is also important. In addition to that, if you log your own stuff, there's a lot of Discord communities that will help you improve individually. A lot of the class Discords will can go through some of your logs. There's also, of course, WoW Analyzer that can tell you stuff like downtime or miscasts or cap resources and stuff like that. So there's a lot of tools that can help you out for pugging. Of course, most of them are raid specific, but in general, I think people who are good at raid are also good at Mythic Plus too. A lot of the aspects of PvE gameplay are really interchangeable between the two.
Yeah, I think particularly like if you're really good at raid, it's likely you can also be good at Mythic Plus. But
I'd say they have the same potential. Yeah, I don't know if it transfers that easily.
There are definitely a lot of people who only focus on one, and there are some stuff that is unique to each environment, and they don't have that knowledge base built up, and they won't immediately be good at the other one. But they could be if they played it as much.
I mean, of course, communication is way more important than Mythic Plus is in raid generally. Right?
Mm-hmm. Um, absolutely. Okay.
I could talk about that one forever. I won't go on too far, but
Go
I
ahead.
think as a raider, you typically have to focus more on the raid encounter and less on your ally. And so in Mythic Plus, when you get there and when you've been a raider main for years, let's say, and you're suddenly having to play with 4 other classes, you need to know exactly what those 4 classes can do and what they're capable of and what all their abilities do, or else you're probably going to wipe to something in a high key. Like you got to know exactly what your tank can take when he has all his CDs down, how big they can pull. You can't suggest crazy things.
It's kind of it's kind of like Arena, right? Where you just need to have knowledge of actually every other spec. Although you don't actually need every other spec, you just need the specs that you're playing with. But yeah,
Well, you also need matchup knowledge too.
Mm-hmm.
That's an Arena thing, right? That isn't a M plus thing. Yeah, so the match you don't need them, but it's similar to the Arena knowledge you need is the like a full understanding of like what's happening with your group. So like you can see when your warrior's running out of shield block charges, you can be like, okay, this person is about to kite, and the mob is blade flurrying or whatever, or it's some other load mob that's got charge claw active. I need to watch out so I'm not in this kite path. Or like you look at the healer cooldowns, you're like, okay, we're out of them, and so we're in trouble here. Or you look at the healer's mana and you see it's low, but then they're a druid and they have innervate up, so you actually are fine for a little bit longer. These are all things that you'll pick up as you do a lot of keys with the right classes, and that's one of the effects that makes like one of the positive feedback loops that makes the classes that are most popular in the meta be even more popular and be even more preferentially picked in these pug groups is the fact that everybody knows what a Resto Druid can do. Like everybody tells you what a Resto Druid's cool. Everybody could tell you what a Resto Druid's cooldowns are. Everybody knows how to play around Spell Reflect from a Prot Warrior. Not many people know what like Bubble Taunt does, and are used to doing Prot Paladin keys with Bubble Taunt, and not very many people know like how a Holy Paladin's damage profile and healing cooldowns line up, and those sorts of things by contrast. So that's something an effect that happens there. Yeah.
Even farther, even some people in their own classes don't know that like their certain ability might do a certain interaction with a mob. Like say a Balance Druid goes to interrupt 2 mobs that are silence immune with their Solar Beam, but they target the wrong mob, so it doesn't actually interrupt the mob they wanted to interrupt. They might not know that if they didn't do dungeons for a while.
Yeah, and that's something as well. Like if you're somebody who, one of the things about playing Prot Warrior is if you play Prot Warrior, you can see the best tanks in the world stream Prot Warrior, and you can see them do it in the MDI, and you can see the tricks they do, and you can pick it up. Whereas if you play Blood Death Knight, you might not see the like cool mass scripts that are possible, and you might not know how they work because they. Anytime you choose to play something that's off meta, you are kind of taking on that role of like figuring out what your class does that's awesome in Mythic Plus, and you don't get to see other people showing it to you. So that's something to be aware of. But on the other hand, the upside on that, is absolutely. So you get to feel like an experimenter, right? You get to feel like a scientist that's coming up with these cool things. You can see like all the spots that your class brings something to that isn't normal there. So there's 2 sides of the coin for sure.
I mean, I think having a good knowledge of pretty much all the classes isn't like super important to get like really good at Raid or really good at Mythic Plus, but it definitely does help. It helps way more than it ends up detracting overall. There's also like a really good weak core from Naga. It's like Zen Tracker or something like that, where you can actually end up tracking a bunch of your party members' cooldowns, whether it's offensive, defensive, utility cooldowns, all those kind of things. So you can kind of get a general idea of like when people are looking to use it. It's also really like you can also like record your own runs and like watch your VODs back. I know I do that sometimes. I did it a lot whenever we were practicing for MDI. I would sit there and I would like look at our Maw of Souls run just to try to understand like why we would end up messing up some of our pulls. Like we would have just issues with like the dogs or whatever else in like the under part of the ship. But I just remember like watching the VODs back ended up helping me out a lot too. I also think it's really nice that LFG and pugs are kind of spammable to some degree. I know for a while I would just like there was some boss in Blackrock Foundry. I can't remember his name, but he was like a really patchwork fight, and I remember I went and pugged him just like over and over again just so I could practice my single target rotation. He did like some like swiping claw ability. I don't really remember anymore, but I would just like go in there and practice just so I could get a little bit better of a feel whenever I was actually trying to learn the game. I know that helped me out too.
Okay, you're looking for a slightly less training dummy to hit.
Well, yeah, because
One where there's
training
mechanics and
dummies are
stuff.
like
Yeah. No, that
fine, but
that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
yeah,
You can kind of measure yourself against other players too that way. With
Right.
yeah,
parsing
exactly.
and all that.
Yeah, that's one of the nice things about logging as well as like honestly logging Mythic Plus as well. It's something people don't do, but like if you do log your Mythic Plus runs, there's a lot of information in there. It's kind of hard to find, like to delve into, but like if you can get somebody who like does keys and knows how to read logs, to look at your Mythic Plus logs and like look through and figure out what's going on and like look through all the deaths and see what happened there. There's so much information that you can definitely improve from there. But yeah, it's hard to do. Like it won't just tell you what's going on. You need a lot of analysis to turn that into information.
Yeah, it's really introspective too. At the end of the day, like really, you have to like think about like what actually went wrong, not necessarily more like you can just point fingers and blame the whole entire time. And we can blame others for our own individual mistakes pretty much all day and say this shouldn't have happened because you should have never done X, Y, Z. But at the end of the day, it's like this could have been mitigated by my own personal play in some regard.
Right, and there are some mistakes that are like clearly somebody else's fault, like that you could have still stopped. Like if you were playing out of your mind and if you could figure out 100% of what's going on and like who in your group, if you could see the mistake, like you could have stopped it, right? Like your tank walks in and proxy aggro's an extra mob and you wipe because of it, but like if you were watching them do it, you could have maybe landed a sap on that thing first. Those sorts of things are like opportunities for you to prevent somebody else's mistake. If you start doing those things, you're gonna do keys. You're gonna be more than 100% of a player, right? You're gonna be like 150% value because you're adding on top of everybody else.
Look for as a tank. Like if I see a rogue do that, I'm like, all right, friends list right now, mid key.
Yeah, then you wipe because you opened up your friends list. We've all been there.
Yeah.
In the middle of the key. Absolutely. So yeah, taking I don't know, basically looking always at what is your like thinking about everything in terms of what I could have done and not at all about what did other people do that went wrong. Is a really great mindset, not just for pugs, but in every sort of content here, because it will cause the most improvement in your gameplay, and it will cause the least strife between you and your group, and it will make you feel less bad about like whenever it feels bad to wipe to something and focus on how you were powerless in it and how it was somebody else's fault. But it feels good to be like, okay, here's something I can do better next time, and then start doing better next time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, in general, WoW is like a game where you, as an individual player, kind of are powerless in a lot of situations, right? Very rarely will you be the positive outlier that causes your guild to kill a boss, or you're the positive outlier that allows your group to complete the dungeon in time. But if somebody's like really hard trolling, you're like 19 manning or 4 manning a dungeon, the likelihood of you depleting it or not completing it in time or having a bad time is very high.
Yeah.
Just by one individual's mistakes. So
it's
that's
definitely a lot easier to go into a dungeon and be like, I am going to make us deplete this dungeon for sure, instead of I'm going to make us time this key for sure. Like,
yeah, I can relate to that one.
Yeah,
Pull up the Tuttle's clips.
Yeah,
wait a second.
I'm just going to apply to this King's Rest and let's get in there, let's pull once, and then I'm out of here,
Fuck.
Take me home. But yeah. Okay, I think that does a pretty good job, though, covering our main topic of pugging and finding groups. I think at the end of the day, like, I don't know, my goal with pugging, it feels tough. It's tough for me to talk about pugging as a topic, because anytime I'm doing a pug group, my goal is to not do pug groups in the future. Like, I much prefer gameplay with friends. So it's kind of a failure case for me. Anytime I'm in a group with, like, a bunch of people that I really don't know. But I don't know, there's a couple different flavors of pug groups. Like, some pugs are like people that you would like to be your friends at some point in the future, and then some pugs are just like completely random people that you're not expecting to ever play with again. And those two are two different flavors of the pug experience. Yeah.
My advice to people is always, one, have a good attitude in a pug no matter what. Even if it's someone else's fault, try to take blame like we talked about. Try to apply it to a positive outlook for the group. And then two, adding people from the pugs on a couple things. For one, make sure they're a good player, obviously. Add them for that. Two, if you have a good communication line with them, if you can talk to them easily and it's not hard to discuss things, that's usually a good sign. and 3 if they can play the same hours as you, because that's also kind of a hard point to get around.
Yeah. One strategy you might like if you'd like to do more keys with somebody is offer to start a podcast with them, and then they will no longer be able to keep dodging you for keys, and they'll have to say yes when you try and do keys with them. Definitely would recommend that approach. Okay. Cool. Let's move on to our current events sort of topic here today, which is beguiling and dungeon changes here in 8.2. So there have been a ton of changes to the dungeons with patch 8.2, all sorts of different kinds. The first one that I would like to discuss is beguiling mobs now give enemy forces count. They have done it. Blizzard has taken the action that I think was most important, which is giving us an incentive to kill beguiling mobs and not skip them. So that each beguiling mob in different dungeons is going to be worth a different amount of enemy forces. In most dungeons, it'll be worth. They're basically always going to be worth the same amount that a normal-sized non-mini-boss enemy will be worth in that dungeon, which is 4 count in King's Rest, 9 count in Shrine of the Storm. It's 4 count in most dungeons. It's like 8 in Toldagor.
It's either gonna be 8 or 4. It's bugged right now and it's not giving any count. But so like basically all the mobs outside of Toldagor are 4, but most of the mobs inside are 8. So I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, the way the mob count works is it's always like a multiple, like a 1 is the lowest amount that a mob would give in a dungeon generally. So there are some dungeons like Shrine of the Storm that have droplets where they needed to like multiply everything up because they wanted droplets to be worth 1 count. And so they needed to have that's why the base mob count in Shrine of the Storm for an average thing is higher. It's because of those droplets in there. Okay, so let's just have a quick reaction here. Beguiling giving count is a fantastic change, right? Everybody here is elated by this change, I think.
Definitely, yeah.
I think that this is this single-handedly has made me so excited for the Affix. It's important to note the Enchanted Emissary is not giving count still. That's the one that you just knock back for 20 seconds and then it teleports away. Or you somebody off taunts it and kites it for 20 seconds and then it runs away. But the other 2 are giving count now, the Tides Emissary and the Void Touched Emissary. And I think that this is going to make the Affix a really good one. I'm looking forward to it now. I was really worried before this change came through, but now I'm hyped.
I'm right there with you. And they also did have some pretty heavy nerfs to all of the emissaries too, which makes them a little bit more reasonable to deal with, not only from like a pug perspective, but from like a coordinated group perspective. Those nerfs are, I guess Dratnos has them on screen right now. We can kind of talk about them in a second. But basically, the count changes also have other impacts with like how you end up capping count without like skipping mobs. So basically, you're pretty much always going to have an invisibility potion, or you have to death run, or you're going to have a rogue. And the most likely scenario is you're going to end up having a rogue in your instance every single time now, because there are a lot of instances that are just like straight up funnels or tubes that you actually just cannot skip mobs in. Obviously, King's Rest is notorious for that. We got Temple of Sethralis. Like, there's not really much you can skip if you don't have invisibility potions or a rogue. There's just not a lot of open concept dungeons in BFA, so it's kind of hard to skip mobs without having like stealths of some sort. So
yeah, I think Freehold and Ataldazar are 2 examples of dungeons that are relatively non-linear, but most of the others are pretty linear. You don't have a lot of options without using skips for what to skip, for what mobs not to pull. So your options are rogues, invis pots, or death skips. But those are all, like, if you don't actually have a rogue for Shroud, coordinating an invis pot or a death skip in a non-coordinated group is not really something you can do. Most cases, like when I find myself pugging, even like a 17 or whatever, if I don't have, if I'm playing on something other than my rogue or whatever, and we don't have access to any of that, I'm just going to advise we just pull the mobs. Like, there's just much less chance something goes wrong. We'll just sacrifice the minute it takes to pull the pack, and we'll overcap count on the place. And in dungeons like King's Rest and Temple of Sethralis, when you do that, you do overcap by quite a bit already on live. And with the addition of extra count from these emissaries, it'll be more pronounced of an effect. But I don't think that is necessarily, like, I think that is a price worth paying for these mobs to give count. I think that the mobs giving count is just great news.
I think I would be inclined to agree with that for sure. Mm-hmm. It's definitely a good change, and it's a step in the right direction. I personally would have liked to have seen them give like a positive side of the Affix, but at the end of the day, I can't be too upset.
Yeah, that was what we were suggesting. Right, was the like buffs from killing them, but like that kind of stuff takes a lot of time to balance. It might be something they couldn't do in like a short period of time, as reliably. So I think the answer they came out with is absolutely great. We could either we could talk about the rest of the changes to beguiling. That might make sense now, or we could talk about the other mob count changes.
Yeah, I think we jump into the next beguiling.
Let's talk about the beguiling notes. Okay. So yeah, there have been some changes to beguiling since we first saw the affix. One is that this teleport the Eternal Palace now has a 5-second cast time down from 8 seconds. Seems completely irrelevant, except you'll drop combat a little quicker if the last thing you were fighting was an Enchanted Emissary. So I guess that's a little welcome. Enchanted Emissary. Queen's Decree blowback now reflects 150% damage, now down from 200%. So this was the mob that gave a circle around it, and anything in that circle would reflect 200% damage back to you. That's down to 150%, which is a little bit of a nice nerf that makes it so you're a little bit less likely to one-shot yourself if you do an AoE effect or whatever at the Enchanted Emissary. It's still going to be hurt really bad, though, so you still need to be really careful. I don't think this changes how you play. It's just going to mean you get punished a little bit less badly if you play it poorly.
I speculate that changes because of pugs, because that people were complaining on the forums. A lot of people who end up pugging a lot end up complaining on the forums because that mob requires a lot of coordination. Of course, like all three of us, we would be in voice with somebody. We'd be like, all right, you get to deal with this. You as an outlaw rogue, you get to blade flurry it away or whatever.
Yeah.
Pistol shot that man.
So
get that mob out of my group.
Yeah. That is one thing that outlaw can do that's really cool is you can handle the Enchanted Emissary without spending any globals. You just turn on your blade flurry and you stand between the Enchanted Emissary and the pack, and you can flurry it away and still cleave onto the rest of the pack. Other people can also tank the Enchanted Emissary. You could have a Moonkin taunt it and run away. That works too. But it looks like a job for an outlaw rogue to me. But as an outlaw rogue, it's possible that every job looks like an outlaw rogue job to me. Another thing about the Enchanted Emissary is that it now hearths away after 20 seconds instead of 30 seconds, which is nice. That means that if you can't deal with it, like if you just have to if something goes wrong with it, you're going to have to deal with it for a little bit less time, which is nice. So that's lucky.
I think the best way to handle it's going to be something where you can immediately get out of the pack and not have to deal damage to it at all. So, like, say the tank charges in and uses the engineering knock belt to get it far out of the pack, and then one other member of the
Emissary is immune to CC effects. The only way to move it is to do damage to it. Yeah. It has a when it takes damage, it gets knocked back from the person who it took damage from. But other than that, it doesn't take it doesn't reply to most effects. Ring of Peace might be an exception though.
Yeah, possible. Well, so it's just direct damage, right? Not dot damage, though.
Yeah, it's like you have to direct damage of some kind.
So maybe some ability that hits lots of times in succession with direct damage, like maybe Hunter or Rapid Fire. Maybe that'd be really good for that. Instantly get it out of the.
Perhaps, yeah. I mean, Ring of Peace. I hear that Trell Brew is going to be back to being a brewmaster perhaps next season. So.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Hear me out. Your Demon Hunter dashes in. Fell barrages, instantly kills himself, says there's nothing I could have done there, and then gets upset.
Okay, Tettles, that sounds a little specific. Is there something you need to talk to us about?
No.
Okay. That sounded a little bit more like a story and a little bit less like a strategy advice.
No. That was just me.
Okay. All right. If you do ever need to talk, all right, we are here for you.
I already admitted that I left a King's Rest earlier, dude. That's enough for me.
Yeah, that's true. No, that's why I'm here for you. Is because I need to make sure that you don't bail in the middle of any of my runs. It's got to keep you happy.
I would never bail in the middle of people I know.
Okay, all right, a likely story.
I would get the gamer lean on and be like, I'm so done with this, dude.
Oh, I do that. Yeah, I slouch into my chair. So bad. As soon as my key's depleted, I'm just I'm off screen.
Dude, yeah, I'm so bad. I'm just yo, what's up, buds?
Yeah.
I'm so done with this dungeon. I'm ready to go to bed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's
Sorry,
that's
I'm not doing it. My chair won't let me do that right now.
That is unlucky, Trell. Yeah.
I need a good chair for that then. That doesn't let me slouch back in.
Okay, so we also have changes to the Emissary of the Tides. This is the water one that you can CC it, but you can't CC anything that's near it. Now its health has gotten reduced down by 60%, so it is very easy to focus this thing down now in a way that it was not before. But crowd control duration is now capped at 8 seconds per application with no diminishing returns on this. What does this mean, Tettles?
This means that if you don't have a druid in your group or a mage, you're going to be pretty sad. So in general, you're just going to want to spam like Entangling Root probably on the mob, because the mob does give caster mobs protected casts on everything. And sometimes that's just not reasonable for you to not be able to kick. Because like think about Spiritualists in Shrine of the Storm or something like that, where if the mob has a protected cast on it and it's
just
gonna
over.
kill the whole entire
Yeah.
pack, dude, like you get the you either have the protected barrier or you have the Mending Rapids from the what is it, like a thug or something, whatever that guy who is that walks around who has True Sight, or the Spiritualist who has the Mending Rapids cast. Like those are two like mandatory kicks, and there are a lot of mandatory kicks in dungeons, unfortunately enough. So this Emissary of the Tides, while I get it, like I understand why it's going to be 8 seconds. They don't like it being called Infested number 2. Like I really can understand. At the same time, you're going to end up having to have a mage or a druid spamming either Polymorph or Entangling Root on it. I guess you could potentially have a warlock spamming Fear. That doesn't really seem too reasonable, but I guess it could be a thing. But
yeah, you know, it is a little worrying to just like you just fear it and it could just run right into the next pack and pull that too, which would be a little worrying. But yeah, you can hit it with. I guess there are some other abilities you could hit it with. You could do some like sort of scuffed CC chains on it. Like you could go like, okay, we'll start with Sap, we'll pull the pack, and then we'll like paralysis it, then we'll blind it, then like I'll go over and gouge it for 5 seconds, and then like somebody will hit it with a full stun, and then paralysis is back and we can parry it again.
Yeah.
So like if you don't have a druid or a mage in your group, you might be able to do some sort of like scuffed CC chain on it. You could also just focus this thing down. It has less. It has like 500,000 health right now on a +10. So you could maybe kill this thing quickly enough to be okay. Like it's possible, right? It's possible that you could
in
get
some
this thing
packs,
down.
I think that'd be okay. Yeah.
It's going to require some dungeon knowledge. Like you need to know in a pack how soon until there's a mandatory kick, and like how much trouble you're going to be in without an AoE stun on pull. So if you have time, then you can maybe do that. You can maybe make that work. And nuke this thing
but
down.
like imagine if it's with like the triple Lasher pack and Underrod or something like that, where it's like, what do I do? It's
You're playing with a Mistweaver. You revival the first set, and then you kill it before the second set goes out. You know, easy. All right. Modern problems require modern solutions. But you're right. Yeah, the Lasher pack there is that's one where you'd probably. I mean, what you might be able to do is like CC it. I don't know. Yeah, you probably just have to keep CC.
It's so toxic. Sometimes it's like, well, I don't know what to do there.
That's.
I guess I just have to CC it the whole time. I
Did
mean,
you guys know that you can spell reflect that Lasher cast?
Yeah,
I did.
it's so hard because it doesn't target the tank unless the tank is the only person in range. But like sometimes when the tank goes to pull a far Lasher, the first cast will be on them and they can reflect it back.
Mm-hmm.
As absolutely something that I have seen. It's really cool. One thing with the Emissary of the Tides, I don't know how much this thing melees for, but you might also be able to just like off tank it potentially. It like you might be able to like Havoc Demon Hunter tank it. Seems like it seems like a spec that might be well suited to doing this. So if a Havoc Demon Hunter could tank this thing and tank it close enough that they can still blade dance the group or the mobs and the Emissary of the Tides, I think that's something that could be a strategy that gets you the best of both worlds here, where you can still focus it down. Because you'd still be able to.
Hear me out.
Okay.
2 tanks.
2 tanks. Okay. I'm in for 2
Shut
tanks.
it down.
Yeah. I'm in for 2 tanks. We can have
Ready for 7-minute boss fights.
Dratnos. Well, no, not 7-minute boss fights. Not for like Elderly Axa. All right. If you have 2 prop warriors on Elderly Axa, that boss is already dead. Although actually that boss is getting changed. Yeah. You're right. We'll talk about Elderly Axa in a bit.
7-minute boss fights, but one of the tanks just runs off while you guys are still fighting the boss and brings trash into you the whole entire.
Oh yeah. That's. I don't see what could go wrong with that.
I don't know, Tuttle.
Yeah, BFA
You
doesn't.
just have the Druid Sunfire them,
All right, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe you off tank it. Who knows?
All right, and then the final emissary, the Void-touched emissary, which was the spookiest one before. Its health has been reduced by 35%, so it's still big and large. But it's also been nerfed on the Queen's Decree hide by 1 second to 9 seconds. So Void Touch Emissary tuned slightly downwards, but still extremely alive, extremely tough to deal with, and will still be, I think it'll be the focal point of a lot of dungeons. Will be dealing with the Void Touch Emissary pulls. Luckily, Void Touch Emissary is the least common emissary. Most dungeons have 2 in them, so you'll have to deal with this mob twice, which means that you could lust it both times if you wanted to, if you don't need it somewhere else. You could try to nuke this thing down. The way it works is the first Queen's Decree hide is going to do like half of everybody's health. The second will do almost all of everybody's health, but Verse will save you, or Defensives will save you. And then the third is going to murder everybody unless you have something insane. So you need to just kill that thing very, very quickly.
From what it's looking like, I think for that emissary, people are going to become really familiar with the very small corners in the linear dungeons. Like, there's a couple spots in King's Rest I can think of off the top of my head in the first room that you can just barely slide into of LOS of other mobs. Tanks usually know these spots, and they're going to have to show their groups where they are. I think depending on where the Void Emissaries show up.
You're right. Any of the Void Touch Emissaries that have a line of sight spot near them are not going to be nearly as threatening as the ones that are out in the middle of somewhere, in that Dervish pack or whatever in Temple. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So chat's telling us that this week definitely has more than 2 per dungeon. So like on previous weeks there was only 2, but now it looks like we're getting a lot more.
Oh, dude, maybe some emissaries will be more common on some weeks versus others. Like maybe there'll be like Void Touched weeks and Tied weeks and Enchanted weeks.
Stop.
Yeah, it seems like it from what the players have found on PTR so far. It's like just like Infested was, where sometimes the small mobs were infested, and sometimes the big mobs were infested.
Dude,
right?
Keys are always closed.
There was no balancing problems with that part of Infested for sure. So I'm sure it'll be a-okay. I'm sure that we'll be totally fine with dealing with 10 Void Touched emissaries in the same dungeon.
I mean, yeah, it's just like where the mobs are placed becomes like the biggest issue, because sometimes your melee have to run for 6 out of the 9 seconds, and they only get to DPS the mob 3.
Right.
So it's like, all right, this is going to take a long time.
You have to make a round trip every single cast here, every single 9-second cast. So if you have to run more than a couple seconds, you're gonna have such bad uptime.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to be able to put in a bunch of damage into it between the first 2 of them, but if the mob would last like 25 to 30 seconds with full DPS uptime, you're going to end up having to take like an extra probably like 10 to 15 seconds just to kill it.
Yeah,
because you have to be like running back and forth.
Well, one thing that we have talked about is we feel like range DPS is something that they could do a better job of making good in Mythic Plus. The Void Touched Emissary is a lot easier for range DPS to deal with than for melee DPS, right?
This is not the way of doing that, though, dude. Like,
you gotta give it to such an issue.
Balance is really good at this, right? Balance Druid has a long range. You can just range the cast probably pretty easily and not lose too much time. It's it could be the way. This could be how the melee meta gets fixed. Is the Void Touch Emissary?
Maybe you have 2 dot classes taking dots on that guy while everyone else just LOSs it. I'm not sure, but
yeah, exactly. You just Absolute Corruption. Okay, the Warlock. You play an Affliction Warlock with Absolute Corruption. You just hit that thing with an Absolute Corruption. You just go on and do the rest of the dungeon, and 20 minutes later it dies, and you get your count. Yeah, that's I don't see how that could go wrong actually, and I've thought this through for a whole 10 seconds. So.
I mean, it depends. It depends on your healer's mana conservation, right? I mean, if they're good on
your
mana,
healer can just die to drop combat, right? Like,
that's it, dude.
We do that in Siege, right? To drop combat with the spotter. Okay, so I think this plays. I imagine my phone is going to ring soon. It's going to be like Method EU or whatever, trying to get me on the team. So if that phone call comes, I'm going to have
Dratnos.
to answer. Yeah. what voice is that supposed to be?
Yeah. Okay. So moving on to the other changes in all the dungeons, we can talk about count now.
Let's talk about mob count. So Shrine of the Storm. Shrine of the Storm. The total amount of count you're going to need to finish Shrine has gone up by a couple percent, and then there's been a rebalancing of how much count many mobs are worth. Deep Sea Ritualists are going up from 10 to 12. Abyssal Eels going down from 3 to 2. Living Currents going up from 13 to 18. And then the 3 other mini-bosses, Windspeaker Heldis, Runecarver Sorn, and Guardian Elemental, are going up from 18. They were up to 24, but they just got another change on PTR, up to 36 now. So they've been doubled in count.
They listened to us.
They did it,
5%, 5%, 5%. Thank you. This is what we needed.
It's still not 100% clear that we will be killing these mini bosses. Like, it may still be correct to skip them, but we are now reaching an amount of count for these mobs where it may be worth killing them, and it certainly won't be too punishing if you do kill them. As it stands right now, if you do a key and you kill a mini boss, you're like incinerating your group's timer. But with this change, I believe this is going to work out nicely. Yeah, we're above the 5% mark on these mini bosses. Yeah, I think this is a really good change. I think that they're in like this is finally going to make these mini bosses something you can pull.
I mean, it just gets down to pull efficiency, like what you can actually pull into these mobs.
Yeah, so
at the end of the day.
The problem with these mobs is like even if they have a good ratio of enemy forces to health, they often prevent you from pulling other mobs with them due to how much damage they put out and how much you need to pay attention to their casts. So, like Windspeaker Heldis, you really can't realistically pull with all that much more. But maybe you can. They're nerfing her as well. I don't know.
I mean, maybe. I guess we'll see, won't we?
Yeah, we have some comparisons to like Legion mini bosses. So like in Halls of Valor, Kings, the 4 kings at the end there gave 5% per as well. In Mauve Souls, the Mariner also gave 5%. In Cathedral of Eternal Night, the mini boss gave 3%, plus another 2% from the spiders, so that was also 5%. In Vault of the Warden, mini bosses were 5%. In Eye of Azara, the mini bosses were 2.5% per, but there were 4 of them that you'd kill them all sort of at once-ish. So this change to the Shrine mini bosses is going to move them towards those kind of Legion mini boss levels of count.
I mean, yeah, even though you didn't ever pull the Mariner, it was always like, you always had the discussion of like, is this worth? Because like you would get so much count and you could skip so much from it, but then you'd be like, no, it's gonna wipe our group. This is not worth. But you always wanted to pull it because it gave so much. You're just like, this is so efficient, but I don't know what to do. I think the Guardian Elemental will probably get. I don't know. That seems likely to get pulled because you can just line of sight the
yeah, especially if you're playing with
cast.
if you play with a Windwalker, they can diffuse that thing back onto it. That is gone.
Wait, you can diffuse that? Oh,
yeah.
the dot.
You can
Yeah,
reflect
the dot.
it too.
I was,
So that I think Guardian Elemental. Oh, I guess Spell Reflect also. It's a thing that does that. Yeah. So I think you're right. Guardian Elemental. I don't know. It seems like Runecarver Soren might still be something you skip. Although
I
pulling
don't think
stuff.
you ever looked at them off.
But the thing is, like, you can pull stuff on to Runecarver Soren, I think. Like, we did it in Season 1. My group did this in Season 1. We would pull Runecarver Soren, and we would, like, pull 2 different packs onto it while we were DPSing it down, and we would just stand in the ward for defensive value against those mobs.
It did seem to work in Season 1. I think we stopped doing that in Season 2 because the scaling of his dot that he put people, even within the ward, was too much damage to take.
Yeah, they changed it, right, so it ramped up, and the last couple ticks started to really hurt. So if you were already in the rune, it was just worse. But if you took a while to get to the rune, it was better. But we were already in the rune, so for a coordinated group, that mob got worse. Which, it's okay. It's all right. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even though the Guardian Elemental causes a lot of downtime by having a line of sight, I'm pretty sure you can just pull like a ton of initiates with it while he's just like casting. So you just probably pull through and then you pull him back eventually after you cleared out some of that space over there, right? Because that seems like that'd be like almost pretty reasonable with how you end up dealing with them.
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely a potential way to attack it. And Heldis, I don't know. Heldis is getting there's some nerfs we'll talk about to her later that might make it possible to pull other stuff with her.
Accuseer.
Yeah,
like,
you
if
can
can
pull her with boss.
15%. Like
at the end of that boss fight, it's definitely something you could do. That wouldn't be too dangerous. You get the haste buff to help kill the boss, so that's useful.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's shrine changes. Waycrest is getting a couple changes. Some of these, okay. So the overall mob count you need is going up. That means if you get the top left route, you're going to need to pull even more. But if you get the top right route, okay, so the way Waycrest works on live is if you get top left, you're like really starved for count and you need to find count all throughout the dungeon. But if you get the top right route, you have way more count than you know what to do with. In general, I think this is a good change because top left route is really good because you get to pull that first boss really quickly, the hard boss, and get your lust on cooldown and get some good lust timings.
I'm pretty sure it's actually count negative because
the piglets
the
emissaries
count.
Okay.
Or no, because the piglets
right.
give 4 apiece, but I think there's like 6 of them or something.
Yeah, so they're the piggies used to not give any count for the longest time, and it's so bizarre. It's so bizarre that the piglets didn't give count, and I believe that this was a bug that just never really got fixed because the piglets they're like cursed and they turn back into villagers when they die, and I think that interaction the coding, like when they die and they turn back into these villagers, instead of just dying as piglets. I think that's why they didn't give count before, and I think that this is finally a bug that's been fixed.
I mean, I still think that makes top left or top right worse, because that's pretty much it's not count neutral. You're actually at a count deficit, but you're just going to be much more. With
Even
top
with
right
two
plus
shrouds.
the emissaries
But there are also a bunch of emissaries, right? A bunch of emissaries that are going to give you count that didn't give,
that's
give
true.
count before.
I mean, it also kind of depends on where the witches are too, right?
Right.
Is you RNG a witch?
Yeah, that is something that we do love to do, is just Titanforge a Vine Twister. That's the terminology for when you spawn a Vine Twister on one of those spawns where it could be any witch.
Yeah, that's a real Titanforge. Right?
That's that's much more of a Titanforge than we are. Yeah,
we're dying.
Okay, Matron Alma is going up from 8 count to 14 count, so getting about doubled on count. This is the mini boss down in the basement D area. Going to be worth about 5% now, which is...
She's spell reflectable, right? You
can spell reflect she has decaying touch.
You can reflect every other, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which is pretty powerful.
Is she worth?
I think she might be worth... I mean, honestly, people were doing her before. Like, people were pulling down there when she was worth 8, I think. Some teams were doing it in MDI, pulling a big in the cellar.
What are you going to skip? Like, where would you... Like, maybe you end up skipping those guard commander pack?
I believe that my personal belief is that every time somebody pulls the hallway, they're making a mistake, the maggot hallway. Like, I think that you should pull as few maggots in that hallway as possible, because they're worth so little count, and they're actually kind of annoying, and you can't pull big with them.
Actually, okay. I think I'm coming around to this. I think I'm coming around to this ideology.
I don't know, and I've suggested every group I'm with that everybody always wants to pull that hallway, but I think it's bad, and I think that downstairs is going to be a lot better.
I mean, you have to split it up into 2 packs. I don't know how much count that whole entire hallway ends up
like
giving.
a peasant gives you like 4 count and drops 3 maggots that give 1 each, and the maggots only give 1 each also.
I actually think I'm coming back around to that. I think you're actually probably right. And like, if you can just do Matron Alma with like, I don't know, there's some shit that you could pull her with like that.
You pull, like, if you're coming in from the kitchen side, you can pull Alma, Thorncaster, Witch, and 4 dogs.
Dog.
Yeah, and that that pull's pretty safe, right? You just need 1 extra kick on Ruinous Volley from Matron Alma, and 1 Spell Reflect committed to every other of her tank abilities, and then the rest of your kicks can still go on disrupting the Witch there. I think that would be a good way to pull. So I
think I'm coming back around to that. Yeah. Well, it also depends on where the begooling mobs end up being.
That's true. Yeah, you do want to avoid getting begooled whenever possible. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's Waycrest changes. We got some King's Rest changes too. King's Rest is getting a 10% increase to the overall enemy forces requirement. And then Animated Guardians are going up from 5 count to 8 count. So as it stands, even with this Animated Guardian increase, even if you're pulling all 4 Animated Guardians, you're still going to need more count in King's Rest. I believe this is a response to Shroud of Concealment being so important in King's Rest. They're like, hey, we're going to make Shroud worse because we're going to make you just need to pull every single mob in this place. But it's I think that making the Guardians worth a little bit more, I think that what this will do is that, first off, I mean, obviously we're also getting count from the emissaries, so with those in, it might be you might still be able to make some skips depending on where the emissaries are.
Yeah, that seems like, to me, like the most reasonable thing is that they're just they're artificially inflating the count just so that you end up getting it back from the emissary, because initially, like, whenever this actually came through at first, it was like, you tweeted out, I saw your tweet, you just like tweeted out a bunch of question marks with the picture of that.
I tweeted out, hang on a sec, and then I tweeted a link to that patch note.
Like, because it's such an unreasonable ass change, because you only skip like 3 mobs in that instance anyways, as it currently stands. 3 mobs at like the very end plus like the 2 constructs, right? So you end up like not even skipping that much in the grand scheme of things, and it's like, wait, they're buffing the what? It's like, what?
They announced it before they made the emissaries worth count, so everyone was like, what? Now we only skip 2 berserkers and that's it?
But yeah, with emissaries being worth count, I think this will work out, and I think with animated guardians going up to being worth 3.25% each, up from 2.23, I believe that pulling the first 4 animated guardians of the dungeon will be just the meta strategy. That's a lot of count that you can get from those things, getting just 10% off the bat like that. More than 10%.
Well, then where do you...
13%. You can skip more of the bridge.
You could skip 2 or 3 packs.
You could skip. I think you'd skip the 2 berserkers and the 5 pack every time instead of just skipping one. Like instead of just skipping the 5 pack, because that 2 berserker pack, like, When we did that dungeon on like 23 last week, we ended up pulling that 2 Berserker pack, but we ended up pulling them 1 Berserker at a time because we were just like we're not about this 2 Berserker at the same time life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that 4 pull of Animated Guardians is going to be good. One thing that used to be something you could do with Reaping, but is no longer going to be a factor, is you could go and pull them after the last boss, but to skip a Reaping wave. But now that's obviously not something that matters anymore. With Reaping gone, rest in peace.
Rip.
Yeah. Although hopefully Reaping comes back as a weekly affix. All right.
Replace teaming with
Reaping.
That actually.
Yes, that would be awesome. Because Reaping is it's so fun. It's actually so fun. I'm gonna miss Reaping. I would be fine. There would be dungeons where I would choose to just add Reaping as an extra affix. I would just take it, even if it didn't replace any of the affixes, and it purely slowed us down. It was purely a detriment, just because of how fun it is. It's such a fun thing to play. So, give me Reaping back. I already miss it, even though it's not gone yet. All right, Toldagor, we're getting a 15% increase to mob count required. This may be offset by the emissaries, but is also being combined with the fact that cannons don't work the same anymore, which we'll get to. Yeah.
Oh, man. Okay, so they buffed the timer and they buffed the cannons the same patch coming into 8.1, right? Because the timer was too tight.
They did those at 2 different times. They buffed the timer, and then like a month later they gave us the cannon buffs, and
yeah.
Yeah.
This is like, now we're just going back to that kind of, right? Because now they're requiring you to kill more mobs, but I mean, I guess the cannons still save you sometimes, so I guess it's something, but
yeah, especially if you have a Blood Death Knight for Mass Grip. I think you'll be able to pull a bunch of mobs and Mass Grip those things in there and hit them with the 5 cannon shots.
Yeah, that's definitely a DK dungeon now. DK tank. But...
maybe Vengeance Demon Hunter?
Certainly, yeah, Sigil of Chains.
That's wrong.
Sigil of Chains. Sigil of Chains.
Sigil of Chains, Sigil of Fear. Cannon.
Yeah.
Cannon 2.
Oh yes, multiple different sigils. I forget the names of the other sigils, but that's good.
Silence.
Yeah,
Sigil
you would just.
Misery.
The problem is you'd probably need to bring another tank so that they could survive a hit from a mob.
Actually, take and do the boss.
Yeah. But other than that, Vengeance does sound compelling for the for the other stuff, for the sigils.
Sigil of jump in and die.
Yeah,
that sounds about right.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so there's some other changes to dungeons that have shown up here. Energy Lash in the Motherlode, which is from the Masterminds, which is the mob we identified last week as the real problem in the R&D department. This can now be magic dispelled, and the debuff only gets applied on channel complete. So what this means is I think you can pull Masterminds a little bit more safely now. The Energy Lash did quite a bit of damage to the tank, and it's now dispellable. So maybe R&D pulls are back on the menu. I don't know. Yesterday I did a Motherlode with Trell, and I suggested the R&D department, and he just said no. So
I said not until Tuesday.
Yeah, maybe on Tuesday. Maybe with this change to the Mastermind, we'll be able to start making that pull.
All right. So what about the Taskmaster?
The Taskmaster. I of course know what a Taskmaster does, but
it's the guy in front of Azeroth.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that one. We were pulling that thing. Yeah,
we did with the boss yesterday.
It's a good teaming, right?
Yeah. That mob's not bad. It does cover, which protects itself and the stuff near it, but you can pull the boss far enough away that you don't have to deal with that at that time.
Yeah.
So
that tech's worth a great deal of percent too. It's like maybe 9% even on teaming or something like that.
And Azerok, one problem with Azerok is that you get to 50% health on Azerok and the boss fight is just done and you're single target, like it's tank and spank at that point, because all the ads are dead. So that's a great time to pull some trash, and I think the Taskmaster pull is a good one to do. Okay. Other changes to dungeons. The dungeon scaling is going up from 8% to 10% per level, which is interesting. This is a reversion of a previous change. It used to be 10% per level back a long time ago, and now it's back to 10%, but they took a brief period of time where it was down to 8%. So what that means is that every time you go up in dungeon level, it's going to be a bigger jump. The difference between a 21 and a 22 is going to be bigger than it is on live. and just every keystone level is going to be harder too.
Yeah,
we
need to get Zongoso in here to explain the numbers on that one, I think.
The math is...
Do you remember the clip of the him and Jason?
Zongo did have a hard time wrapping his head around the
Was this the 70 million clip or whatever? Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, so 70 million. And then Jason goes, Zongoso, think about that for just 1 second.
Yeah, I can't remember how much health we had in Legion, but it was something like way more than an average player's health.
Yeah, I've seen that clip. It starts with Zongo saying like 70 million, and then Jason's like no, and then he explains how to do the math, and then he comes back out with 70 million. That was a fantastic clip.
I don't know. So King's Rest is only doable on a 21.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're nerfing Spit Gold. So...
Okay, so I thought about this the other day, and I think I realized why they're nerfing only Spit Gold. I think it's because they see a lot of, like, a disproportionate amount of the runs end, like,
on the first
at the very
boss,
beginning of the instance. Yeah, so they're like, oh, this is the only issue with King's Rest. And it's like, no, this is not the only issue with King's Rest.
Yeah, it's, the very cynical way to say this is, you know, Ian Hazakostas did his weekly 10 and it was a King's Rest and they wiped the Golden Serpent. That's what some members of my guild will tell you is why they made that specific change instead of doing the rest of the dungeon.
Not Dratnos.
Not me though. I would never say that because I am not toxic, but some of my guildies are, and I just want to let you know how toxic they are. We do see there's also an affix combination being changed here on PTR. Fortified Bursting Quaking is being replaced by Fortified Bursting Volcanic. Interestingly...
And these are all like fines done on PTR. Blizzard hasn't come out and done these changes yet, I don't think. So that affix was found last week to be changed from Fortified Bursting Quaking to Bursting Volcanic. So we might see a bunch of other affix changes in the coming weeks.
Yeah, this one in general, though, I think is a fantastic change. I think that Fortified Bursting Quaking was a pretty hard week, and I think that Fortified Bursting Volcanic will be now in contention for being one of the better fortified weeks for high keys.
Oh, dude, Bursting Quaking is just so awful because Quaking is such, like, reliant on your healer trying to not grief you for, like, 6 seconds while he's trying to heal through the bursting, and then it's like, oh, Quake.
To be fair, you may have a similar effect where you're trying to cast your heal through the bursting stack and a volcano spawns under you if you're still in combat. And
one is dodgeable is the only difference, right?
Okay, look, it is a little different, but you might still get that damned if you do, damned if you don't gameplay. But that would require you to be in combat, right? And the worst of bursting is done out of combat, so you can mitigate that by good gameplay. Okay, we still see all the same changes to Ataldazar. We talked about these last week. Again, an exciting one is the Colossi being pullable now. So Ataldazar, there's going to be a lot of options, potentially left side routes. Freehold timer nerf.
With the rending maul decrease, are we pulling the double? Honor guard?
I don't think so. That's
absolutely not. Absolutely
not.
And
not only do they do that nasty bleed on the tank that stacks, and you have to have someone taunt if you want to live on high keys. They also pulse massive AoE damage, which I don't think was nerfed at all. So the double AoE damage.
But the rending maul was nerfed by 23%, right? That should be plenty of compensation.
Yeah, 2 developers, yeah, probably.
Okay, yeah, other changes here. These are all... Okay, the one that we haven't talked about, Windspeaker Helldis, Gale Winds damage reduced by 28.6%. They've done the math here, and they've identified that 28.6% was the perfect number. 28.7 would be, of course, far too much of a nerf. Would trivialize the encounter. But anything less than 28.6...
28.5.
28.5, that's just ridiculous, Tuttles, you know. This is a serious show. Please contain yourself. So yeah, that Gale Winds nerf... to Helldis in combination with her being worth double count might end up making her pullable. Absolutely. Other changes that we haven't talked about. It looks like the rest of these are... Oh, okay. Elderly Axa. Here we go.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
The first thing we saw, Elderly Axa Blood Bolt base damage buffed by 25%. All right, now when we saw this change, all three of us actually, like... Dude, I was like going on in my mind. I was like, what is happening here? This is just like, we're making the boss even more impossible if you don't have sufficient kick coverage, and we're making the boss even easier if you have a spell reflect. It seemed like the absolute wrong direction to go with Blood Bolt. But we have now learned that they've also fixed a bug that makes Blood Bolt scale improperly with key level, which result in a combined 67% nerf to Blood Bolt damage in Mythic Keystones, which means that it's actually pretty tankable now. You'll be able to survive this thing even on high keys. At a 67% nerf, that's very serious. You're still not. I mean, you're still going to want to spell reflect it and kick it, and groups that do that are still going to see success. But if you accidentally let one through, which I have done the last 2 times I was in an Underrot on my rogue, and I'm not proud of that. It will not wipe the group in the same way anymore, which is good. It's great news. So happy to see that.
I think what that ultimately
what would Snap
translates
say
to
about that?
I think if it had been Snap in the group, we would have just heard a mic cue, and then we would have heard just like something get slammed against the desk, which is fair. I would have deserved it.
I think what that ultimately translates to, 70% nerf is like in a high key right now on a 24 or 25, Sputterflight hits for like 1 million damage on that boss, literally 1 million damage.
Mm-hmm.
And after the changes, I think it'll be about 300k at that level-ish.
Right. Which means you can
put that into
like live it with wall pretty easily or anything if you don't have
that's unmitigated. So tanks have like 350k, 400k health right now, so you can actually live the bolts now, and you don't actually need 4 melee kick rotation.
Yeah. So maybe this is with ranged kicks coming back, or with ranged coming back onto the menu maybe for Void Emissaries. Elderly Axa won't be a boss that just immediately kills you if you have that composition.
I have a question about this Knot of Snakes nerf. Like, why did that come through? I don't really understand that.
So Merek'tha, Knot of Snakes damage reduced by 50% in Temple of Sethralus.
Is it that bad if it doesn't get like CC'd off you? Like, I kind of understand why, but like,
I can't remember how much damage it is.
I don't know.
Made it so you were immune to the poison while you're in the knot.
Exactly. I thought that like trivialized it, like because once you're immune to the poison while you're in the knot, there's like no chance you die, right?
Somebody in chat says Ian failed to 10 Temple. That's a cynical explanation for what happened here. Is a Blizzard developer did a run of Temple and Knot of Snakes was the damage instance that killed somebody. But I certainly if I had to go through a list of Temple of Sethralus abilities that I felt did damage, it would be like, okay, Galvanize. The other ability from Galvanize is like Static Shock on the first boss. Cyclone Strike maybe on the first boss. Conduction.
Jolt if you're not
auto attack from the dervishes.
Boss meleeing you?
Yeah. But the dervishes also the dervish auto attacks and the dervish jump. I
thought you were talking about the Adderus and Aspects. Like,
no, I'm talking about all of the. Okay, yeah, that too though. All of the abilities in Temple that I would nerf before I get to Knot of Snakes. The Spit from the Tenders and the Incubators, the Cleave from the Rider, the Electrified Scales from the Rider, most of the auto attacks from most of the mobs in the dungeon, and then like way down here, I have Knot of Snakes.
Knot of Snakes.
It did 180k over 15, and now it does 90k over 15. What?
Yeah, that's one of those signs to me where I think they probably didn't realize you could just take it off someone by stunning it or CCing it in any manner you
or killing it. It dies in 5 seconds if you kill it.
That's true too. Maybe we just move on past that change.
I mean, like, it's not a bad change. It's one of those changes that like it doesn't do anything bad to the game. It's just a change that like when you see it, it makes you think of like, okay, they are balancing this dungeon, and this is the change they came out with. It's a little weird. But end of the day, I'm happy with the overall direction of most of these changes. You can't win them all right? You can't win them all. There are going to be some of the changes that just, go past you. Maybe in Pugs, it feels bad to be Knot of Snakes, and that you never get it broken out, and maybe that's the reaction that this change is aimed at, and that's not something that we see, obviously, so that could be what's going on.
Whatever.
I do want to say one part of the game, unlike Mythic Plus, that is receiving some changes that are less good than the ones to Mythic Plus are Island Expeditions. I'm not sure if you guys have seen this. Let's see.
No, I have not.
I haven't heard about Island changes.
All right. Hang on. I have a story for you.
Oh no.
Okay, let's pull up the PTR over here.
Is this about the AP count, or what is this about?
There are a bunch of... this is a tweet from THD, Raider and Limit, and known Marbles on Stream player, on this stream, or on my stream. So his tweet is, "Hello, fellow islanders. If you want to see what true hell is like, at least on the PTR at the moment, islands have been changed a bit in terms of items. You can't buy atomic and wands off the vendor in islands, so those have been removed. Rabbit charms are untouched, so if you stocked up, that's good. But here's a picture that shows all the items on this picture with the question mark next to them have been removed. So atomic target painter, and what was the other one? Wands, the arcane wands, those are gone now. Those were items that made islands pretty easy to do very quickly. Rabbit charm is okay, but most of the other good ones are gone. And there's a new list of items to replace these that's here on PTR. And let me just plonk this link on in here. Everything on this list except for the the link didn't quite go, but if you copy the whole thing, that'll work. Everything on this list except for this irradiated undercoat is a new item in an island expedition that you can buy with Seafarer's doubloons. Let me just read some of these out for you so that you can see what kind of excellent items we're looking at. I'm just going to read them in order. I'm not going to cherry pick. We'll just read them from top to bottom. These are replacing Atomic and the Arcane Wand. Rod of Magical Fervor. Killing an enemy magic wielder increases your primary stat by 798 for 15 seconds. Lasts for 20 minutes. Poisoned Whetstone. Right. Chance on attack to cause the target to take 3,868 nature damage every 3 seconds for 12 seconds.
Did you just say 3,000? Wait a second.
3,000?
Yeah. Enhanced Mining Drill. This one's a good one. This one speeds up the rate at which you gather Azurite. This is the good one on the list. Shadowpan Mercenary Kit. Increases your damage to Mogu and Mantid enemies by 5%. Fight or Flight Amplifier. Fight or Flight Amplifier. When your health drops below 30%, gain 299 speed rating for 20 seconds.
Speed rating.
299 speed rating. This is about 7% movement speed. Okay? So, you're getting right out of there, okay?
Fuck, man. What is this shit?
This is a good use of your Seafarer's doubloons, okay? Tome of Last Rites. Increases your stamina by 997. When you slay a Furbolg, Druid, or Keeper.
These are really specific.
Totem of the Annual Call. Increases damage to beasts by 5%.
Thank God.
Hey, that one's actually okay.
Pandaren Herbalist Kit. Yeah, there's a lot of beasts. Pandaren Herbalist Kit. Increases all healing received by 499.
Wait, did you say 499?
409. You heard 499. So that basically
that can't be scaling correct, can it?
Yes, it
There's
can.
No way.
Yes, it can. This is the world we live in here in islands.
I was thinking the same thing. Maybe they're just like placeholder numbers. Maybe they're gonna buff them before release.
So
that's
the positive.
It's possible that Blizzard did some Zongo math and ended up with some wrong numbers here at the end.
No, it should be 499,000.
Yeah, that would be more. It increases all healing received. So like if you have a hot ticking on you, it ticks for an extra 500 every tick.
Yeah. And the damage was like 3,000 or some shit.
Yeah. So basically, there are a bunch of new items for island expeditions that replace a bunch of the good ones, and none of them do anything. So, which is good news because there are a lot of gamers right now who are gearing up to do 1,000 islands in the first 2 weeks of this patch to get their minor essence by the Mythic Week. So to those gamers, I am deeply sorry. I'm deeply, deeply sorry that you're going to have to do that. They've made islands harder.
All right.
Yeah.
Hear me out, Dratnos. What if one of your raiders came to you and said, "Hey, Dratnos, I know that we really want 55 before the raid comes out, but I don't know. I'm just not ever stepping into an island and ever again." What would you...
in my guild, we are a-okay with that. Islands are not a required part of the Poetry Club experience. But if you're in like limit or method or whatever, you have to, right? You have to do it. That's just what they're gonna do. Okay. I guess that closes out our main topic here. That island thing was a little bit of a diversion I found out about yesterday on stream. It was pretty fun. Did some testing of exactly how much speed 299 speed was going to be. That was pretty exciting. Pretty fun sprinting around there with that extra 4% speed or whatever. Let's see. Do we have any good questions that we picked up from chat today? Either you copy and pasted some good ones? All right, fire away.
You wanna go first?
I got one.
Okay.
So the Melker posted, what if they fix their true sight? How would you skip them? And he was talking about when we were discussing the shrine changes for the mini bosses. Currently, they're bugged to where they have true sight, but they don't activate their true sight until someone puts them in combat. So you can still shroud past them or walk past them if you have invisibility at all until someone puts them in combat. And then when you wipe, it's even worse because then you have to skip true sight mob. So if they fix them, how would you skip them? And my answer to that is they can give lots of mobs true sight, and people can always find a way to skip them. There's always a way to skip a pack as long as there's not a physical gate behind the pack that you can't walk past until the group dies or the boss dies.
Yeah, so if we were to try and skip Heldis, there's the mount jump that's available along the side that works even if she has true sight. So you could skip her regardless. You just need to pull the initiates separately, which not everybody knows how to do, but it is possible. If with Runecarver Soren, like if Runecarver Soren had real true sight, you would probably just skip him and the Guardian Elemental at the same time. You would do like a run through. A death run there. And that would work out a-okay. That'd be fine. You'd have to skip a good pack that's after Soren, but it's not even that good of a pack. Like I think they skipped it in MDI also. Method AU did with their route, so it would be fine. You could just do that skip that they did.
Could be Alliance and just meld it.
You could be Alliance and just meld it, and meld is still looking to be pretty powerful. It was briefly looking like Shadow Meld was going to be 100% mandatory if emissaries didn't give count, but now that they give count, it'll go back to being really, really, really good instead of completely mandatory. And we won't have to.
Yeah.
We are not going to have to faction transfer to do keys. Is the main good thing.
That's good. I do have some friends that still raid.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions from the chat here?
Yeah. Okay. So whenever we were talking about pugging, one of the questions was at all three of us. So what level keys do you think voice chat is recommended? I'm pretty nervous about beguiling even for my 10s when the season first comes out.
I mean, no matter what keystone level you're doing, you're going to be better with voice chat. So it's just a question of like if you're going like many levels below what your group could be capable of, like if you're all geared and stuff for 13s and higher and for 15s, you can probably do a 10 without voice chat, but like it's always going to run better with voice chat.
In general, people are less likely to leave too if they're in voice.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, if someone positive is in voice, it helps a lot for sure.
Mm-hmm. Although some people get annoyed when you are positive. It's something I've noticed. Sometimes people, they'll it actually irritates some people. So you have to be careful. You have to be careful about like sometimes you have to temper your positivity. I don't know if this is a problem you guys run into, but it's something I have to do in keys sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, you're pretty positive, Dratnos.
Dratnos, smug motherfucker. Stop being so happy.
Yeah, people read that sometimes. It's so watch out. Watch out for those people. Okay. Any other questions we got here?
Yeah, we had another one about emissaries replacing mobs. So basically, right now the emissaries stand alongside the mobs. And the question ended up being like, what happens if they ended up replacing them? I actually think that this would actually be a good change. And then in addition to that, they also said like whenever they do replace them, they give the exact same count. So that would be nice for stuff like, I don't know, whenever you had the Void Emissary literally right next to Windspeaker Heldis, like.
Yeah, so this could behave kind of like Reaping, where like it replaces the mob, and like it has the same model and it has the same health as the mob it replaced, but it does different set of abilities. Based on what kind of emissary it is. It's a cool idea. I don't know if it'd be more fun or less fun than this version of beguiling. Definitely, it's at this point that's not going to happen. We're getting this beguiling for sure. But it is a cool idea. I like it.
I mean, it's just awkward because the void can be placed in such a bad pack at such a awful spot.
We're talking about so like the mini bosses, the dervish pulls in temple. Double honor guard before Volcall and Taldazar.
What if it's next to that spark channeler at the end of Seth Rallis?
I don't think that would be that bad. That might be just keep kicking. Yeah,
very much damage. Even if the cast go off, it hurts you like 20%.
No. The void emissary. What if the void emissary is right next to the spark channeler?
Okay, yeah. So you'd have to
Yeah.
wait to pull it
There's,
until
like-
everybody gets there. Yeah.
Oh,
The only
true,
line
yeah.
of sight is that big ass pillar on the left side.
Oh yeah.
too.
You just go find that. You just go around that pillar though. It's fine. The other
The pillar's
mobs.
so far.
That's fine. It's fine. You brought range DPS, right? Okay, no, your range DPS just works on the Void Emissary, and your 2 melee go and solo the orbs on the sides. Okay.
Okay, fair.
Yeah.
I can see that. That's
now
a
we're
good point.
now we're thinking with portals. Yeah.
Oh, I actually think the begooling mobs are no longer affected by affixes too. So
That's good. Yeah.
that's a
one of the
big move.
One of the big upgrades from Reaping relative to Infested was removing interactions with other affixes, because like Sanguine and or Infested was toxic, and Sanguine Reaping not being a thing is really nice, and all the other stuff too. Yeah. I think that Beguiling they've really learned from the lessons of Infested with this affix, and we'll take it in a better direction. Yeah. Okay. Other questions we got in chat here? Tettle's Trail.
Oh my god. Wait, there's a void. Oh, hold on. I'm looking at a picture of the Void Emissary being matched with the Tentacle Pack in Shrine of the Storm.
Okay. Got a link for me?
That's love that. Hold on, I'll link it.
Talking about the double big tentacle pack?
Yeah.
Okay,
dude.
yeah, I got. Here we go. Okay.
What the fuck is that?
This. Okay. Void touched emissary, colossal tentacle, abyssal cultist. I mean,
So okay. What are you supposed to do as the tank?
wait a sec. Yeah. Okay, you can't run
You
away
can't
from these
move
tentacles
Oh, yeah, you
because
can't fight. I didn't think
they
about
kill
that.
everybody if they don't have anybody in melee.
What the fuck is that mob?
All right.
Soon
so,
they will hotfix the colossal tentacles to have little legs, and they'll run around to the.
I mean, that's what they do when they spawn as
We're
reaping
using-
spirits.
Hold on. Everybody has to have a Moonkin or an Elemental Shaman for Shrine of the Storm that week. You either gotta trees the tentacles or you gotta rock Ellie.
Yeah, not just elemental shaman. Resto or
Any shaman.
yeah, exactly. Works too.
This is an Ian Hosakostas setup.
This picture looks like a job for Gurgthok, the Resto shaman. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that one's gonna take some science.
I mean,
That's
you
that's
could
a
just-
tough situation.
You could just kill this void system, like this begowling mob here. You could just go in here and just nuke it down still before, like, if you just can kill it fast enough, that works too, right?
You just gotta death run it, right?
You could just death run it too. Yeah, okay. So it's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the world. But it is.
That's so bad.
It's a little apocalyptic. Okay, this image here of the void touched emissary on this pole. It's a little dystopian. It's spooky. I'm spooked. Okay. There's some good questions.
Alrighty, Dratnos, you want to read some of the questions we got in chat?
Sure. Can we get a pronunciation counter for how many different ways we can pronounce beguiling in a single podcast? I'm pretty sure we're only pronouncing it the correct way, beguiling. I don't think anybody's said
begooling?
any of the other any wrong ways to pronounce that word. What range classes are looking good for M+? This one is I've been answering this with Balance Druid. I'm not gonna lie, I think Balance Druid is looking good.
Yeah, it's either gonna be Balance or Ellie. I think has the highest degree of likelihood of being good. I think Frost Mage. I think Frost Mage could definitely see some play because
Frost
AoE
Mage,
slowed.
yeah, the packed dice build as well is a pretty good way of doing priority damage, which could be very effective against void touched emissaries. So that build does good prio, and that might be a metric that is tested by this affix.
It also depends on the essences, like where classes end up landing on essences. I know Moonkin is going to be pretty big on some of the essences, but yeah, I guess it really does end up depending on where classes end up scaling to, like where they end up getting after the raid as well. Obviously, all PvE balancing is only decided by raid, so I guess we're just flipping coins sometimes as to whether or not some of these classes are going to actually stay in a state where they're even like bringable to Mythic Plus, right?
Yeah.
It also doesn't help that the delta between the bottom class for AoE and the top class for AoE is just absolutely astronomical and just unacceptable on some degrees. But like the delta between single target is normally within like a couple thousand DPS, so it doesn't really make any sense. But
yeah, that's
it's
because the balancing focus is on raid, which
it's only for raid.
I believe to be a mistake. I believe that it would be really good if they tried to make like it's okay if there are some classes that are the best in Mythic Plus, but the difference between those best classes and the worst classes in Mythic Plus, I agree, is way too large. And would be great if there was a focus on making that gap smaller from Blizzard.
I mean, yeah, dude. I mean, just imagine running like literally with a Vengeance Demon Hunter, like a Vengeance Demon Hunter. I guess what was the worst healer? Like Holy Priest. Like imagine that comp, VDH Holy Priest, and it's like, no.
Dude, there's probably some listeners that play that comp and are really sad right now. I feel bad for them.
Dude, what the fuck are you supposed to do with that kind of stuff? Like,
what do you mean, dude? You sigil of silence them. What are they gonna do? They can't cast at you. You're good. You got them.
And they melee you, and you don't have any armor, so you die.
Yeah, pretty much, man.
Okay.
There's another question in chat. Trell, what do you think about tanks for beguiling so far? Well, it's kind of hard to tell. Every tier, there's a big change in scaling for new eye level bonuses and all that. Every tank gains a little bit different kit from scale. There's 6 tanks, and some tanks are far overpowered and some are underpowered, and they try to adjust them, and usually they come in waves of different balance changes. So it's really hard to tell until you really get to the relevant eye levels, and then you have a chance to run the content as well. And on top of that, they're also introducing a new factor, essences, so it's like completely up in the air this time.
Yeah,
Right.
so I agree that in general, like anybody who claims to know what specs are going to be good next patch, for sure, is like trying to sell you something. They're trying to tell you that their spec is going to be good, probably, or whatever.
Rogue.
Yeah, just
Rogue.
Rogue is an exception. Yeah. Rogue is an exception because Rogue is always good. But outside of that, there's it could be anything, I think, for tanks. But Trell, you're looking to start the next season on your Brewmaster, right? So that's
I am. Yeah, I'm being hopeful about it.
Yeah, and Trell, you're gonna play Brewmaster, like because it's your favorite thing to do. As long as you can, as long as it's not like a huge punt to do, you're gonna play your Brewmaster, right? Yeah.
Yeah, until I can't do top level keys within a few levels, probably.
Yeah, and that was your experience this season, is you felt like you couldn't play Brewmaster and do keys, the keys that you wanted to do.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think this season is a pretty big outlier. I
initially thought with the Emissary of the Tides, like paralysis and everything else, I thought Brewmaster might be decent on beguiling, but like even then, with the change of it only being for 8 seconds with no DR, I don't really know how I feel about the Emissary of the Tides now. I guess we'll end up seeing.
Yeah, I mean, so you could still use paralysis and maybe ring a piece against the beguiling mobs, and that might be something.
The boo gooler.
So that's something that they might be one of the better specs for doing that, but I think you're right that it's mostly going to be just a druid job to chain root on those things, or a mage job to chain volley. Okay.
Yeah, there's many sciences ahead for that one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking. Okay, so I was actually really concerned, but I'm actually kind of looking forward to this Mythic Plus season now. I think it's going to be a little bit better than I initially anticipated. I still think it's not going to be like the sickest thing that I've ever played. I think it's still going to be worse than Legion, but Legion got good on complete accident because they gave us Fell Shield Emitter and Titan Guard, so I guess that was a thing. They got okay on complete accident, so can't really count for them to completely fix everything. But it is the fact that they are actually going through and making this many changes is a step in the right direction, though, for me personally. Just the fact that they are like aware of all of this crap being just horrible is super sick, and like finally them coming back with those Shrine of the Storm mob count changes on the mini bosses.
Yeah.
Like, all right, we could complain about it being too late, but like the fact that it happened, I'm okay with it.
It's interesting. Now, it's tough because like it's okay, and this might be a little bit of an ego trip. It seems like this is one of the first times they've made a big response to changes that have been discussed among the high-end like Mythic Plus community. There have been a lot of patches where people in the high-end Mythic Plus community have complained about stuff, but nothing has been done about it. But this time, the only thing that I can see that has changed is the Titanforge podcast has come into existence. So it is my firm belief that somebody at Blizzard Entertainment listened to this podcast and heard our suggestions last week and the week before about how to make beguiling awesome and what to do with mob count changes. And I believe that it is our.
The prophecies
we have
Actually, yeah, I'm on board. That was our fault.
We have made the world that we wanted to live in here. We have created the our actions here today on this podcast have been what caused these changes to be made. And I firmly believe this, and nobody will be able to say anything to convince me otherwise. So
I wonder if we're gonna get more Reddit traction or Twitter interaction with all of this, Dratnos, with us being the sole and only reason that these changes have come.
Yes, as a visionary prophet who can see the future, I believe we probably will. Sometimes it's difficult being burdened with this much knowledge. When I'm like walking around outside, it's tough because like my center of gravity
Pioneers of change.
my center of gravity is just so high because of all the weight contained in my skull, right? It's just difficult to stay balanced. I'm just like trying to keep my head balanced on my shoulders, and it's much harder than for a normal person.
Okay, I think we're good there, dude.
Okay, all right. Let's.
Dratnos, please.
I'll stop. That's okay. Let's see. Do we have anything further we want to talk about on this big show, or should we get out of here before I claim?
Oh, I gotta breathe.
Yeah, claim like majesty over the whole world or whatever.
This is why rogues are so unbalanced.
All right, I guess that's probably gonna do it here for our show this week. Thanks everybody for watching. Thanks everybody for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you did, I guess tell your friends about us. Rate us on iTunes and stuff. Make some Reddit posts about us, or upload the. I don't know. I guess if you
follow our Twitter,
engage with us on social media at any opportunity you get the chance to. Thanks so much. Yeah, follow us on Twitter at Titanforge. Wow, and I will. Yeah, bye everybody.